What is frustrating is that 5 years after the Paris Agreement, we are still off track. We are still heading to a temperature growth in the end of the century of 3 to 5 degrees, which would be catastrophic for the world. It would be the destruction of our planet. The Paris Agreement was a remarkable achievement. And the commitment was that we should reduce the temperature at the end of the century by less than 2 degrees, as close as possible to 1.5 degrees. But the commitments made by governments in the Paris Agreement, the immediate commitments, would not lead to this reduction of emissions. They would still lead to something around 3 degrees at the end of the century. And what is more frustrating is that the promises made in Paris, very few countries respected them. Very few countries have fully implemented what they had promised in Paris in relation to their own economies and to their own societies. It's unfair. Those that contribute more to climate change are not those that are paying the highest price. It's the poor people in the poor countries that are paying the highest price. And this is frustrating.
As we head into the Climate Ambition Summit, what kind of new commitments do you hope to see exactly? Your wish list, if you may.
We believe that in Paris there will be a chance for many countries to give a clear perspective that they are indeed, from now, not only waiting for 2050, but from now, adopting the measures that are necessary to make carbon neutrality in the middle of the century a reality. Time to end fossil fuel subsidies. We are still having too much bet on coal. Now it is cheaper to produce electricity by new solar power plants, even with the cost of the investment, than just keeping old coal power plants working. So we need to build no more new coal power plants and progressively phase out coal. We need to tax carbon less than people. Today, we pay taxes essentially for our income or for the products we buy. Well, we can reduce those taxes and put a tax on carbon, or create a carbon market. China has done so. We need to make sure that the risks related to climate in financial operations are disclosed, that banks, financial institutions need to be climate-related financial disclosures, not to give the impression that those risks do not exist. So there are lots of things that we need to see happening in the near future in order to make sure that countries will be able to deliver in relation to their promise to reach carbon neutrality in 2050, 2060, but in the middle of the century.
China, of course, has an outsized role to play here. It is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, but also the biggest investor in and producer and consumer of renewable energy. China has promised to reach carbon neutrality before 2060. Does that go far enough? And what more would you like to see from Beijing?
Well, first of all, I think China was essential for the Paris Agreement to be possible. And this was an absolutely essential contribution. Now, China was crucial for the net zero coalition to be formed. Without China, this would not happen. On the other hand, China has announced a number of very important measures. And so what I believe is that China is clearly in the right direction. China is providing leadership. Of course, we always ask for more to everybody. We ask for everybody to intensify their efforts. And one thing that is very important is China is a strong supporter of the developing world. You have the Belt and Road program, you have many other programs of support to the developing world. It's very important to green those programs of support to the developing world. I think China can have a leading role in the international cooperation to be a magnet of attraction of other developing countries to make sure that they invest with the same commitment that China has announced to get net zero emissions, but also to build resilience in their communities.
President-elect Joe Biden has promised to bring America back into the Paris climate deal. How do you see America's role playing out when it is back in play? And what kind of assurances do you have that America will now stay the course?
The Paris Agreement would not have been possible if there was not an agreement between, at the time, President Obama and President Xi Jinping that was done before the Paris Agreement and created, I would say, the momentum to make it happen. So both countries are essential. And the cooperation of the two countries is essential in relation to climate action. Now, I'm encouraged by what was said by the incoming President of the United States, but more than that, the fact that he has appointed John Kerry with a particular responsibility that is unique. I mean, I've never seen that in a cabinet position with a particular responsibility to mobilize all capacities for climate action is encouraging. And so I'm hopeful that China, with the US, but also with Europe, with Brazil, with Japan, with Korea, and all these countries together, the G20 countries, that represent more than 80% of the emissions, that the G20 will be able to come together and lead this transition to carbon neutrality and this, I would say, common effort to rescue the planet and to make peace with nature.